This is a special news report from Panther News. I'm Aki.
And I'm Max. We're here today with Massachusetts Congressman Joe Kennedy. He's running for re-election this November against Republican candidate Dave Rosa. Congressman, thank you for joining us here at Panther TV. I know it's a busy season right now. Before we start, could you please tell us about yourself and possibly a day in the life of a U.S. Congressman?
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. So my name is Joe Kennedy. I live in Brookline, Massachusetts. I represent the 4th Congressional District, which is basically communities south and west of Boston. I'm in my 2nd term, so finishing up 4 years now in D.C. and running for my 3rd. Day in the life of a congressman, there is no real set rule on that. It's a completely different day from if I wake up in Massachusetts versus if I'm down in Washington, D.C. I spend about half my time in D.C. I spend about half my time up here. Down in D.C., the days start early and the days go pretty late. I'm normally out of my house about 6 or so in the morning, back around 9, sometimes later at night, 10 o'clock at night. And that's where all of the policy side of the job happens. So legislative hearings, our votes, most of our briefings, and the stuff that affects the national political agenda, and a lot of work with my colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, trying to get bills across the aisle and across the finish line and signed into law. The stuff here in the district is, I think, an awful lot of fun. So we get to set that agenda. We get to set those meetings. I bounce around my district an awful lot. And it lets me make sure that we're staying in touch with the communities that we serve, the folks that we serve, and trying to make sure that the issues that they care about are the ones that we're championing down in D.C. So both places it's busy. I get a little bit more say as to what happens up here. And my wife and family are up here too, so it's always nice to be home.
That's awesome. Well, our school community is always concerned about education policy and how it might affect us. We are particularly interested in the STEM training in public schools, and we were just wondering if you have any education initiatives that you could share with us.
Yeah, so we've been, I agree, listen, I was actually, my undergraduate degree is actually in a form of engineering, and it's been really helpful for me to get comfortable with numbers and not be intimidated by them, particularly in my current job. So I think having a base set of competencies in STEM fields is really important, particularly when you see that out of the jobs that are in the fields that are projected to grow in the years ahead, STEM fields, that's science, technology, engineering, and math, are projected to grow at twice the rate as non-STEM fields. Wow. So we want to make sure that our students have the skills that they need to compete, not just in an economy today, but an economy of the future. We have authored a couple pieces of legislation that have been we've been able to get past Congress, focused on trying to make sure that everybody gets access to those STEM skills. So particularly for folks that are underrepresented in those STEM fields, women, minorities, and communities from lower incomes, that they have the access to the technology and the skills that they need in order to get those jobs. And that was called the STEM Gateways Act. We've also done a lot of work around community colleges, vocational schools, and vocational schools in particular, with a piece of legislation called the Perkins Modernization Act, trying to make sure that the curriculum from those vocational schools is tailored to the local labor needs so that their graduates can go right into a labor market. We were able to get that one passed too.
That's awesome.
So also, many of us are just entering the workforce, and we're concerned about the gender pay gap in this country. We understand that women, on average, earn 77 cents per dollar that every man makes. Would you support policies to close this gap?
Absolutely. Look, I think a fundamental piece to our country, just morally, has to be that the person does equal work, gets equal pay. That stat that you indicate, Max, is, I think we are making progress on it. There's clearly a huge holdover effect from a generation or several generations before where women didn't have nearly the economic opportunities and to an extent still don't. So we want to make sure that women are getting access, again, to the skills that they need to go right into that workforce. And second, that our workplace policies support family life and family realities today, whereas I think for an awful lot of folks, a generation or two ago, our communities was based around a single wage earner in a home and a caregiver, oftentimes dad at work, mom at home. For an awful lot of families now, you need to have 2 wage earners, right, to try to make sure you're paying the bills. But that also means that somebody's got to be caring for your kids, so you've got a cost of childcare that we have to address. We need to make sure that there's a requisite number of representation, adequate representation of women on boards as well, so that our companies are actually considering policies that affect women as sometimes guys just happen not to address. The last piece to this, again, gets back to the STEM piece that we talked about a second ago. There are a significant amount of fields out there where women just are underrepresented. And research, I think, has shown that particularly in those technical fields, it certainly isn't based on a capability. It's based on a decision that happens oftentimes in earlier than high school, middle school or elementary school, where women look at a field and say, I don't see other girls my age, I don't see other peers in this, I haven't seen other people do this, I'm going to go in a different direction, this must not be for me. Well, particularly when we see the growth of those STEM fields, and if those continue to be dominated by men, you're going to see those different income measures continue to be desperate. So we want to make sure that, again, everybody feels like they can contribute, everybody has the access to those skills, everybody gets to play. And if we do that, our company is going to be stronger, our community is going to be stronger, our economy is going to be stronger, because you're going to have the most talented folks occupying those best jobs, delivering for their families and for us. And that's the goal.
Definitely, yeah. That's great. Well, thank you again for taking the time to sit down with us today. Before you go, we just have one last question. Have you had the chance to enjoy anything in Franklin while you've been here?
Just came in and scooting back out, so unfortunately not yet, but if I can stop by, normally there's a couple places in town that I normally feast at, so great sandwich shop in particular, so we'll see if I have time.
All right.
My staff lets me eat.
Well, that's all for this special report. For all of us here at Panther News, thanks for watching.
And don't forget to vote.